course. The course is graphic design and advertising, and we've got a pedigree here of about over 30 years. The course has been running, and we've got alumni, and I can say now at McCann, because here she is. We always lead with that, Anna. Kin and Carter, Vogue, The Flavour People, Published Sapient. We've got Mark Stringers, a co-founder of Ahoy, Manchester's very own. We've got guy I was on this course with is now the brand creative director at Marks and Spencer's, and the list goes on. We're a small, intimate course, workshop based with live projects and great industry links. If you want to inquire about the course, those links are in the chat, and I will conclude the talk with our website, just if anybody's interested. So over this week, we've been lucky enough to have 3 talks from 3 ladies over 3 days, just to cover the topic of women in design, and it's been very interesting 3 talks. We've had Anna Weinhoven, who is a student on our shared pad unit, taught by Alex Jackson, who's here. We've had Nikki Lyle, who is a creative recruitment consultant and TEDx speaker. That was yesterday. She's great. Now, Anna, here we go with your surname. So now we have Anna Jachimczak. How have I done there? Okay, and with a surname like Komlosi, I feel your pain, who is our very own alumni digital designer at McCann. Her talk is called Aiming High, and Anna describes herself as a collaborative digital designer with over a decade-long career in the creative industry. She values human-centered experiences and solves user problems by asking the right questions and crafting simple, effective solutions. She's okay. I mean, the list is endless here. There's UI and UX, enterprise design thinking work she's done with IBM. She works with the Manchester's 2+2 event that we are involved with and is running next month. She's worked with the Ideas Foundation. Clients include Royal London, Aldi, Magnet, Smyths Toys, THG brand. Yeah, the list is endless, and she's got a lot of great work to show you. So I'm going to have to shut up and hand over to Anna. Anna, it's lovely to have you here. It's the first time I've seen you, although we have text, but it's the first time I've seen you in person in 10 years, which is shame on me. So thank you very much for coming along, and I'll hand over to you. If you just try and share your screen, if you let me know if you've got any problems, that should be enabled.
Yeah, great. Hi everyone. Let me see if I can share the screen first.
I'll confirm it.
Sure.
I'm not entirely sure I allowed that.
Can you see my screen?
No, okay, I did that, sorry. I must have done that. Let's see, 1 minute. Sorry, I obviously didn't allow that when I started up the meeting. Just gonna stop sharing my screen for a second. I can see your screen, so sorry about that. It's because I think we were doing it before. Right, you should be able to, I can see your screen now. Can everybody else see Anna's screen? Can I get some confirmation?
Yep. Yes.
Great, Anna, sorry about that. Okay.
No, that's okay. I mean,
Okay.
This is new to all of us. This whole, I would much rather just be in a classroom with everyone and just do it face to face, but we are where we are. So
we are where we are. Okay.
Right. So hi everyone. Alex has done such a great job introducing me. I feel a bit embarrassed actually by all this kindness. I thought I'll start us off with something like cute, just to something cute and happy. So this is a picture of my dog, Blanca, who we rescued about 4 years ago, and she is like my partner in crime. But I'm not going to be talking much about her. You might hear her though, so I do apologize because she is a barky one. So I thought I'll just start us off with a little bit of history, really, and talk a little bit about how I got on the course to begin with, and then talk about my journey. And like Alex said, just feel free to kind of raise your hand or interact if you have any questions. I'm going to make some space as well as I talk for some questions, you know, just so we can make this into a bit more of a conversation rather than me talking at you for about an hour. Okay, so a little history. So I came to the UK from Poland in 2005, which sounds like many, many years ago, and it was. And I was already 21 at the time. I didn't really have a clear direction of what I wanted to do with my life career-wise. So I started working in shops, and then I moved on to like over the phone customer service. And then eventually, as I kind of worked my way up through all these different jobs, I got a job in a small company in an administrative position, and they needed like some marketing materials doing, didn't have a budget for hiring an actual marketing person. So I became a marketing person because I had an eye for layout, and I was using like Microsoft Word to design like flyers and posters for events that they needed at the time. Obviously, I didn't know what I was doing at all, but it sparked something in me that that could be a career for me, and that that could be something that I could do for a living. So eventually in 2010, I made this bold move of like just quitting my full-time job and applying to this course. I was a week late applying, but still the guys kindly let me in, even though my portfolio was just a bunch of like Word designed posters and some logos I'll be like too embarrassed to share with you today. It was such a great opportunity for me, and I'm so grateful because it really set me off this track that I am on now, you know, 10 years later. And I'm still on it, and I have a good career from it. So I got a yes, and I got in, and immediately I started to feel like this, because I had the coursework and classes, but because at the time I had to support myself, I also had a job 6 days a week in the afternoons that I had to go to. And then as you try to learn these new things all the time, you also want to freelance because you want to get some extra money and some extra skill. And I was living with babies because I had to move in with my sister who had babies at the time, because I couldn't afford to live on my own anymore. And you try to network and meet people and have a life, and it feels like that a lot of the time. And I bet some of you that are on the course right now might feel this way too. And especially we've got this extra pressure now, you know, last year and this year have been so difficult. But what I'm trying to get at is that it's important to have these experiences, and it's so worth going through it because you get lessons from this experience that you really carry with you throughout the rest of your career. So some of the lessons that I kind of want to talk about is, first of all, resilience. So while all this stuff might feel like a lot right now, it actually gives you some mechanisms to cope with for in your future, because you're going to need resilience in this industry. It's tough, it's demanding, it is long hours often, and a lot of things to do at the same time. And so you need to build up this resilience to difficult situations, to multitasking, and being able to really kind of use that, and you can get that from the course. You know, I learned how to prioritize my task, and time keeps super important, to be on time and to respect other people's time as well as you kind of progress in the industry. When you've got a deadline, you need to meet the deadline. So you can learn all that as you are in the course. Presentation skills. So that's something that I was thinking about my first time presenting something on the course. I think it was maybe like week 2 or something. We had to do some investigation into some art. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember the feeling going in front of people. My voice was shaking, my legs were shaking. I was so nervous. And I get a bit nervous now still after so many years when I have to pitch to the client, or when I have to show someone my work, like to a client or a colleague. You get nervous, but when you get nervous, it's because you care about it. So there's nothing wrong with that, but you can try to practice these things that you're going to need throughout your whole career in the college, in the course, which is like such a nice environment to do it. And then last but not least is receiving and implementing feedback. So this is something that you're going to have your whole career. You can be an executive creative director and you're still going to get feedback, because you're going to get feedback from clients or colleagues, and it's not always going to be kind. And I think that there is such a great learning during the course when you receive feedback from your peers, when you receive feedback from your tutors, to really take it on board, learn how to deal with that emotion that you feel, because we all pour our life, our emotions into our work, and it's important to learn how to detach yourself from that, take the feedback on board and apply it, but without losing your own kind of style, without losing your input into the project. It doesn't mean that people that give you feedback are always right, but you always need to listen to what they're saying to you. So that's something that you can practice during the course in a kind of safe way, and a way that is only designed to help you get better. As further in life, it's not always going to be designed to help you get better. Sometimes it's just going to be unkind, and you just need to learn to deal with it. So these were kind of the lessons that I learned. And I was on the foundation degree course, which was maybe different than some of you are on right now. It was a 2-year course with an option to do a top-up third year for a bachelor. I couldn't do the third year.
It's still the same, yeah.
Oh, is it? Right, okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't do the third year, unfortunately, because at the time I needed to go back to full-time employment. I needed to start making full-time wage. So in 2012 came graduation time, and I missed my actual graduation because I was already working. I got a job, I think, in May or June at the end of the year. But what I wanted to show you was this graduation piece that I did, which was this little book on typography. I was so obsessed with like typography at the time, and I had the time for it, which was great. And I did this book, and the reason why I'm showing you this is not because this is the most amazing piece of design ever made, but it's because it gave me something that I was very passionate about, a talking point for the future. So when I applied for freelance work, when I applied for job interviews a few years after the graduation, I brought that book with me, and I talked about it with passion and conviction. And it was such a good talking point for me, something to really showcase like what I was all about at the time. So it's something that I still have on my shelf. You know, and something that I'm still quite proud of, even though I, of course, looking at it now, I'll be like, oh, I changed this and I changed that, as you do, because you grow and you learn.
We've had that on the wall for a while, I should say, Anna, so it's a great piece of work.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it really was something that I think have allowed me to have the pitch, the interview pitch that you need to kind of practice. It was such a really good talking point for me at the time. The reason why I missed my graduation was because I was working full-time, and guess what? I did a digital design course and landed a job in print production. So I basically did a print production job for quite a while. It was my day job, and it was hundreds of jobs a day, of setting files. It taught me a lot about file management, keeping my workspace tidy, all these things that you learn in a fast-paced production role. But I knew quite early on that this wasn't my career. This wasn't where I wanted to be professionally. And so quite early on, I started my second job, and I had no life for a few years because I did a day job, and then I did the evening and weekend job of freelancing. I was basically trying to get any work that I could, and I did it for very little money, and I just wanted to build up experience and portfolio so that when it came to looking for another job somewhere else, I was more experienced and more prepared. But also it helped me explore all the different areas of design, and I kind of knew that digital was where I wanted to go. I thought I'll maybe tell you a little bit about how I got the extra work then, and a lot of it still applies today. I used LinkedIn. Now, I don't know how many of you are on LinkedIn. I wasn't when I was a student, but actually LinkedIn is such a great way to connect with people. And you can and you should connect with designers, creative directors, all the other people, whichever industry you're interested in, you should connect. And if you're too shy and you don't want to connect, follow them and interact with them in comments and react to the content that is being put out there and give your thoughts, because you just never know who might read it. You just never know what might come out of it. And actually, you'd probably be surprised by how many senior people can actually are more than willing to connect with kind of junior designers or people who are just starting in the industry, because we've all been there. And so whenever I get a connection request from a junior designer, I always say yes. And there's going to be more people like that out there. Friends and family is another great way. Like, people who you know can become such strong advocates for your work. They can share your work and they can find other people who might need something doing. You know, at the time I was doing anything, business cards, flyers, posters, even like dabbled a bit in like websites, or like trying to do some websites, even though I just didn't really know what I was doing then. But like there is a lot of power in getting these close to you to advocate for you. Then you can send your CVs and portfolios to agencies. Now, this is something that I would really strongly recommend doing, but in a smart way. So you wouldn't just blanket send the same message to 100 different agencies. You know, do your research, find out who is the person there who you could connect to. Maybe connect to them on LinkedIn instead, or if not, just personalize that invitation, write about why you want to work there or why you want to connect with them, why it's important. Is there a piece of work that they were involved in that you really liked and you want to talk about it? Because it really can open the door for you. And it did for me, although at the time I wasn't as clever about it, and maybe it took me a couple of years to kind of get to a point where I understood that you need to be personal in order for people to respond to you. And then last but not least, for my portfolio, I worked on passion projects. Now, there is a bit of a stigma around passion projects. Oh, client work is more valuable. In a way, yes, client work is valuable. I'm not going to say no. Of course it is. However, in a position I am right now, if I was interviewing a junior designer or someone who is just starting in the industry, I would not expect them to have a huge portfolio of client work, because naturally it's just impossible. However, if you have one or two really well done and well curated passion projects that you did out of your own initiative, and you can really talk about it with conviction, with pride, and you can really explain your thinking, that is so valuable. Because ultimately, when we hire people to our team, we think about, how does this person think? Can they think in a way that will help them progress? Will they make a good team member? This is the kind of things that we look at when we think about bringing someone else into our team. So it's valuable to have these projects, because they can really give you good talking points while you're interviewing for work. And just a final bit on this before we move on to the work. And it's about documenting your work. So one thing that I learned the hard way is that if you don't document as you do your projects, you then forget a lot of the things. You forget why you made this decision, what influenced it. So I would really strongly recommend that you document your thinking process, because that is what people in the industry want to know, how you think, like how does your brain tick? What is happening inside there? Like, why did you make these decisions? Because we don't have all the answers. We don't know what's right or what's wrong. There are some principles that we all follow, of course, but there is no right or wrong often. It's about why you've come to this conclusion. So document it. Keep your portfolio up to date, because you just never know when an opportunity is going to present itself. And then publish to as many places as you can. Like right now, compared to like 10 years ago, there is just so many platforms. You can make yourself like really seen and do these things, just because that gives you the exposure, and you just never know who's going to see it. And that gives you some opportunity to get some extra projects. So before I move on to my next bit, I just wanted to give you an opportunity if there's any questions about that before we move on.
Thanks for that, Anna. I'm just having a quick look in the chat. Nobody's been brave enough to pop anything in the chat. Just give it a second. I certainly have a quick question for you, just while we wait to see if anything comes into the chat. Did you feel like giving up at any point? I mean, you know, honestly, when you look back and you were trying to do all those different things at the same time, did you ever think, this is crazy?
Yeah, so I did, because it was really hard. There's no denying it. It was really hard. It was, I basically, since I started the course in 2010, all the way to landing the 2016 job that I'm going to talk about in a minute, so about 6 years, it was almost like having two jobs all the time, or it was actually literally having two jobs at a time.
Yeah.
And you kind of put your life on hold a bit, I suppose, and your relationship suffered a little bit because of that, and mine did. Luckily we got through it, and we're stronger now than because of it, but still, like, there is a lot of sacrifice that goes into that, especially when you're starting in a position that I started, which is, you know, 26, not living with my parents. My parents live back in Poland, not having that financial support of being able to stay at someone's house for free.
Having to keep everything up, aren't you? You have to keep,
you know, you just have to juggle all these things at the same time and making sure that nothing falls on the ground. So yes, I did. And there were times as well when, so in my 4 years between graduation and getting a job, the digital design job, I often felt like maybe that production job is all I will ever do, because I did the freelance work, but whenever I went for a full-time role somewhere, an interview, and I didn't get it, I felt like, oh, I'm just not good enough, or how am I going to get good enough to be able to get these jobs? And you get good enough by keeping at it. There's no secret. There's no magic to it. You just
tenacity.
Keep at it. Absolutely.
We have got. Thanks for being so candid about that, by the way. It's yeah, I mean, in short, it's tenacity, research, but it will affect your life and even relationships, which is quite a candid response. I've got a question here from Katie, and it's about portfolios. It's on my list of questions, actually. I don't know whether this is the time to touch on it. You probably want to talk in more detail about portfolios a little bit later, but the general gist, and it's the same for me here, Katie. My question's the same. It's just physical portfolios over digital portfolios. I mean, if you can, do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, we can. I've never had a physical portfolio.
Oh, there we go. That's a quick answer. Bang.
Now everything is digital, and now actually even more so as we enter this new world of remote work and more opportunities presenting itself in our industry, because more businesses are becoming open to an idea that someone on the other side of the world could be working with this organization. Physical portfolios, in my personal view, are probably a little bit obsolete, because digital is quick. So for a portfolio, design takes a long time, but content is quick. So you need to find a platform that allows you to put together a design. There can be a website, or it could be Behance, or anything else that exists out there. And you just need a space where you can quickly update your content. Because if I was looking at someone's portfolio, yes, I would be interested in how the website is done. And if I was looking for someone maybe applying for a UI kind of role, I'd look at what their interface looks like. But really, I'd be interested in their projects and their thinking behind the projects. And that's something that you need to be able to update quickly. So if you do a physical portfolio, you set yourself up to just sticking with this portfolio because it cost you money to do it, and it was really time consuming to prepare it. And then you might find yourself afraid to make these changes that need to happen, because you need to keep updating it with the new stuff all the time.
Thank you, Anna. We might, if later on, I'd like to explore the idea of, you know, a show reel stroke motion graphics versus a PDF, but that's probably a big one. I've just got a quick question here from Freya. Freya, do you want to ask this question yourself? She's just probably unmuting.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Anna. I just wanted to ask you, in hindsight, was this all worth it? Like, were the sacrifices worth it to you personally? Sorry, it's a hard question.
I would say definitely yes. When I was talking to Alex, just a little pre-chat before this talk, I told him about how nice it was for me to revisit this last 10 years and reflect on the journey from where I applied to the course all the way to where I am today. And I have to tell you, yes, it came at a certain cost, but also the reward is so great. Like if you get a career from it that you really love and you're really passionate about the work that you do, you can really understand that the sacrifice was worth it. And certainly for me, when I think about where I am today in my career, I think, yeah, definitely worth it.
Oh, thank you.
No worries.
Okay, Anna, thanks for that. So I know there's some great stuff coming. So what does 2016 hold?
Right, okay, back to it. 2016, so I've applied to numerous jobs before then, but I was also having some life stuff happening. You know, we were getting the mortgage and moving to a very different place, and we were like moving away from Manchester. So when I was finally ready, I started applying to all these different roles. And in 2016, based on the portfolio I built up, I got a job as a digital designer for the Hut Group. I don't know if you guys know the Hut Group. They are e-commerce retailer, huge global business with multiple brands that they own and also multiple online stores. If some of you hit the gym, you might know MyProtein, that's one of their brands, but they also have numerous luxury beauty brands that they actually own. So when I got the job as a digital designer over there, I got a job in a beauty team, which is nice because that's when all the really nice kind of beautiful brands and imagery happens. I don't have my very early work, but let me tell you, it was a shock to the system because I started on day one. They're like, right, so look at this brand and we have a 20% offer on, do us a banner for a website. And I was like, oh, how do I even go about this? Like I went from kind of print production and some freelance projects to this really fast paced kind of digital creative environment. But you know, you just say yes and you do it, and then you do it some more, and then as you're learning and you getting the job done, you've been asked to do more. And so I just wanted to talk you through some of the stuff just to show you the progression of like responsibility that I got as I was working there. So for example, this one was a request to design a full landing page, some ideas for the campaign. I had to look for some stock imagery, make sure that it all works, come up with some lines, come up with like content kind of idea. I wasn't writing the content, we had people that did that, but it was basically like starting to build this bigger project. And then I was like, okay, so we need to do this photo shoot, came up with a concept for it, and I art directed it for the first time, went to the studio terrified, never been to a studio before, didn't know what to expect. We had great photographers, luckily. We had stylists that helped us out, but this is literally all in camera. Me and the photographer, there was light in the back, and then we had like little light with multiple LEDs, and we were just swirling them around and trying to get like some effects on this photography. Again, learning as you go, learning on a job. Like there's no time to prepare. You just, that's what you need to do. You come in. If you don't know how to do it, you just find someone and they'll tell you, or they'll help you, or you figure it out with them. So you just kind of learn as you go. And then again, another example of things that you might ask to do, even though you're a digital designer, you have to design something first. So it's a ebook thing that they wanted us to do, and I had to learn like how to, maybe not how to lay out because I already knew how to do that, but like how do I make it digital using like a third-party software, and I had to learn how to do that and how it all ties in together as a campaign. And then as we progress more into more responsibility, a whole campaign design. So props, I had to buy all these props, I had to source them. Of course, the company paid for it, but I had to go and look for them, and I had to go and figure out how it's going to work and what are we going to do and how are we going to light the products, how are we going to use the props that we have, what are we going to do for our photography, so that then already with that in mind, how are we going to do countdown to Black Friday? How are we going to make the emails? Already knowing and kind of pre-planning everything so that when we did the photography, it already fitted within what we needed it to do. Another example of something that might be a bit of a curveball is like, we need some Christmas photography for this brand, the same brand, Grow Gorgeous. What can we do? So this is a concept, let's do some wrapping papers. Okay, but we haven't got one, so we're gonna just design one. So it was me just designing this wrapping paper and then finding a printer, getting it manufactured so that it has a gold background and it has a red background and it's all gonna come together. And then doing the art direction, going to the studio and making sure that we have these assets and figuring out again, like knowing how it's gonna work in the components that were available to us on the e-commerce website. And this one, for example, another one where I remember Alex always laughed at me because I used to select everything with a pen tool when I first started. Even in Photoshop, I like select everything very carefully. Came quite handy to be able to do this because this is all hand-drawn stuff that then got printed and laser cut from actual card, and we set this in. This is a physical set that we created for these products, and this was my campaign. Like from everything from the way it looks to the photography to how we then handle it online and on social and on the website. So it was kind of I was progressively given more responsibility. But when I say I was being given more responsibility, that is true. But also it was because I demonstrated time and time again that when I was given some responsibility and trusted with something, I delivered. And as you do that, and as you show that you are reliable, that people can count on you, that you have ideas and you're not afraid to show them and present them, you're just being given more and more, and you'll be given more and more opportunities. So this was kind of the overview of the work that I did before the project I really want to talk about. So in terms of what I learned from this experience, my first, I think it was maybe like the first year at the Hut Group, was that you'll have variety of work that you will be asked to perform. Not all of it is going to be just comping banners in Photoshop. Some of it might be, and we did our fair share of that as well. I did my fair share of, Photoshop banners. But then there is a whole big world out there of things that you might be asked to do. And often you have to do these things at the same time. And there is no way around it. You'll have one campaign going, another campaign, and then banners that need doing, and you'll be doing all these three things at the same time. The expectations are high in this industry, the expectations of what you are able to do, and also what you are able to learn. So you can never stop learning. You can never sit down and say, that's it, I'm done now, I know everything. You're never going to know everything. Things change all the time, but also you need to understand a little bit of everything in order to be able to really progress and provide value. But this comes with time as well. You don't have to know everything right now, and no one would be expecting you to. No one would be expecting you guys, as you just start out, to have all this knowledge. But from every work that you do, think what you can gain from it, what you can learn from it, and retain it and learn, and don't treat it like a chore. Even though some of it is, not everything is glamorous. Yeah, I'm showing you some really nice glamorous work, but there was also bread and butter stuff, daily stuff that we needed to do. It's e-commerce business. It's a daily rotation of assets. So you still need to keep producing and producing. But one thing that I wanted to really say to you here is that you need to be prepared to always be outside of your comfort zone, or often. I live most of my life outside of my comfort zone at work. Because as you push yourself to these unknown territories of work that you've never done before, of course you're going to be uncomfortable, but that's where the good stuff happens. That's where you have the passion and you really learn from that. So it's like so important to really push yourself and really just say yes. Just say yes. When they ask you to do something and you don't know how to do it, just say yes and figure it out later. It's fine. You're not the only one. We're all doing it. Trust me, we're all doing it. We're saying yes and we're figuring things out later. Whatever level you're on, we're all doing that.
That's great advice, Anna, because I certainly experienced that in the workplace and have continued to experience that in teaching. and in life. So I do like that theme, and it's very true, very true.
So just thought maybe that's a kind of natural break to see if there's any more questions about any of this stuff.
Would anybody like to pipe up? Let's give it a minute.
How often have you been asked to do things that are kind of outside of, say, you mainly focus on branding or banner design, or how much have you been asked to do things that are completely outside of what's in your portfolio? Say, for example, like UI or UX or things like that?
So in my role at the Hat Group, very often, I would say. The role as a digital designer, so unless you have a specific role in an agency that only does website builds, and your only role is to design interfaces for website builds, you can I think I can say with quite confidence that you can expect to be asked to do things, variety of things all the time, because digital design role is not just the one thing. So unless you are a very specialized role, often when you see the digital design roles out there, jobs to apply for, you can see that the list of responsibilities is really long, and it's because you are expected to do all those things. So, and even now in my role at McCann, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later, even though technically my specialization there is UX UI design, I still do a lot of digital design as well and other things. So to answer your question, I would say quite often, unless you're very specialized.
All right, thank you.
No worries.
That was Matt, wasn't it, Matt?
Yeah.
Is that a worrying answer to hear?
No, definitely not, because I've tried myself to kind of learn as many skills as I can, but obviously you can't be a jack of every single trade, so it's keeping the balance.
No, that's very true. Yeah, Matt does get under the hood of stuff, and you know, I'm constantly saying that although you're learning fundamentals, you're learning a whole variety of you know, ways to approach and tackle stuff, and creative thinking and application skills and time management, yada yada, research, whatever. You are in a lot of ways preparing yourselves to learn the way a company wants you to learn when you arrive there, and you learn all over again. It's kind of like we're preparing people to learn, if you see what I mean, with, you know, when they hit a new environment, and not freak out and go, okay, how do we deal with this? Yeah,
I mean, I think, and that's the right way of looking at it, because while maybe in very large companies, very well digitally established companies, you might be able to slot into a very specific role and only ever do that role. In many other companies, you would be expected to wear many hats. Although that's not, it's not to say that you should be scared of it. It's just the opposite. It gives you an opportunity to explore. And especially when you're just starting and you're not entirely sure as to where exactly you want your career to go, it gives you an opportunity to explore all these different things and experience all these different parts of what design is all about. And then you can choose to specialize after a while if you think that that's what's for you. Of course, some people know already what they want, and they know that that's the specific job they want to do. My experience, certainly from job hunting over the years and where I've been, is that a generalist can do a little bit better than a specialist in terms of a general job hunt, where you are less experienced. And then as you progress and you've got more experience and you've got more grit, you can specialize a bit more then. So if there was an advice to give, I would say, yeah, you cannot be, you can kind of feel like you may be like, you know, jack of all trades and master of none, but at the same time, often these skills, these variety of skills is more valuable to an employer than someone who can only do the one thing, but do it very, very, very well. So I guess, again, it depends on what your goal is for your career on that. But certainly a good point about learning all the different things. And I think when I did the course, I certainly felt that it helped me prepare, because we dabbled in all these different things, and like how to learn the new thing that I don't know anything about, and how do I learn about it, and then that's what I've been applying throughout my whole career as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Anna. I've got one more question here, but I'm just going to...
Oh, you muted yourself, Alex.
I meant to do it the other way around. Sorry, I meant to press the button and then... I've got another question here, but I'm just going to firm the question up for the next break, if that's all right, because I just want to try and work out what Katie's asking here. Okay.
Okay. All right. So there is a project that I wanted to talk to you about, because it was my first really big project, like huge project. We're not talking a seasonal campaign, or we're not talking like a freelance small branding project. It was huge. As a result of all that work I showed you and all the work that I've been doing, I got noticed, and I made myself noticed, I guess, in a company, and we formed a small team of people from different specializations to create a new brand for the Hat Group itself, which was our parent company. This was the first project I worked on that involved this group, huge group of people. You know, we had a copywriter and some content people and a UX team and a UI designer, and then there was us, the digital designers, or some of us were more into brand design, which is something that I still really love and used on this project too. We had a creative director and we had an executive creative director. So you can see it was quite a big team, in a way of, you know, bigger than any other project that I've ever been on. And it kind of really propelled me to the path that I am on right now, which is why I wanted to talk about it. So we did some branding work on the brand itself. I had to do some art direction with people. So this was my very, very first photo shoot that involved actual humans. Very different than shooting products, because you really have to look after the people. And there was over 100 people that we needed to do this with. So I was not only art directing the shoot, but I was also interviewing them at the same time, so that we gained some content that we could then put on a website in the individuals' profiles, and that was some quotes and some stuff about them. I also was involved in the design of the website, and that kind of really put me on the path where I'm today, because as we were designing this website and I was started to work with all these people that I'm kind of mentioning here, so like, you know, who are the UX people, and I started using UI specific tools, like I used Sketch and for the first time, and everything else always happened in Photoshop. And then I used kind of Zeppelin and Envision and started to learn all these things. Obviously now the world has moved on already. Like in just a few years, we have so many more tools available to us for digital design. But I kind of realized that this is something I'm really passionate about, and designing interfaces and designing experiences, web experiences, is something that I was really, really interested in. And this world fascinated me, you know, like, you know, talking about like really responsive design and thinking about assets management on this big build, and how it works from when you design something, how does it get built exactly? Like I knew bits, but I never was so close to this process as I was during that project. So I was working hand in hand, literally side by side with the development team, and we were kind of working on this project together. And I understood what it really means to collaborate with other departments, what it really means to collaborate with other people, with content creators. Because when you freelance, you often do everything yourself. That's kind of well, that's the gig, right? You sign up for freelancing gig and you do everything yourself, even write content oftentimes, because that's what your client expects you to do. Well, if you go into a big project like this, it can feel like, you know, there's just so much more to this. And little did I know, because now I work for a place that does that on a regular basis, and I'll talk about this a bit later. But you know, there's that was really something for me. That was a really pivotal moment in my career. And so as I got good at it, and I kind of was really passionate and I really started digging into it, I've been allowed to do some other projects internally for the Hub Group and did some more website design, and more people photo shoots, and really like starting to get a hang of like how to do assets so that they work really well on the website, how to do purposely designed assets for builds that are not based on components like the e-com websites. I kind of decided that it was a time for me to try and venture outside of the e-commerce world a bit and the corporate world, and I wanted to do some more. So in 2018, I applied and got a job as a digital designer at McCann. Now there's a story there. So there is a before. So before, and I think that was maybe before even this project, I think. I applied for McCann, and the reason why I applied for McCann, and Alex knows this, is because in my first year, Vanessa, who no longer teaches the course, I don't think, but she was our tutor at the time, she mentioned McCann. She did maybe like a placement there or some work there, I don't remember exactly, but the way she described McCann as a place to work, I was like, that sounds like the most marvelous place to be. Like, I was like, this is like amazing. And already then I kind of thought to myself, this is going to be like the first agency that I'm going to go to. But I always, had this thing, I'm not good enough to go for somewhere like McCann. Like no way in the world they're gonna accept me there because I haven't got the experience. I was like, right, I have to get this experience, And so I was building and building. 2017, I went for a job interview there for a role that now having the experience, I know that wouldn't be probably right for me because it was more like an art direction, kind of creative design type role. And I didn't get it. And yeah, I was devastated. I was like, oh, I'm just not good enough, right? I'm never going to get to a place like this. But actually, and this is something that I put in there because it's true. It might be cheesy, right? But it is true. Failure is not the opposite of success, because you need to fail in order to understand how you can improve. We even have this methodology in our design when we design digital products, by where we say, fail fast, learn fast. I don't know if any one of you has ever heard about this. It's basically producing the least effort possible piece of work, be that like a wireframe or a super quick prototype, something that is not in any way polished or even that well thought out, just to test an idea. You put it in front of people, and if you failed, and if they don't know how to interact with it or something's wrong with it, you take that failure, you welcome it because you've learned from it. And so when you learn from it, you can then improve your solution and improve and improve. And same can be said about your life. Whenever you fail at something, this is not a reason to sit down and cry. Yeah, it hurts. It sucks. When you go for a job interview, a place you really want to work at, and they say no to you, you can be devastated. And I was really upset. But actually, I thought, okay, I just need to get better. I just need to think more about my portfolio. I just need to think more about my projects and the work that I'm doing. And I need to practice my pitch. So people love a story, right? We all love stories. That's how we are wired. That's how our brains are wired. So when you go for an interview somewhere, anywhere, you need to have a story. You need to have a story to tell about who you are, what kind of person you are, how is it to work with you, how do you think on projects. This is what you need to be talking about. You need to have a story about you, but you need to be authentic about it too. And I think when I went for an interview in 2017, I wasn't as authentic about who I was as a year later when I applied for a different role, and I was more self-assured and I was more confident because my story was better, because I practiced it, but also because I was authentic. It was honestly me. So that's something to kind of bear in mind, is that when people hire you, they want to know who you are, because you're going to be part of that team, and often they are small teams. And so don't lie about who you are or where you want to be. Be honest, be open about it, but have something about it, have something to say. You have a great story. All of us have great stories. We just need to learn how to tell the story. And so I And actually, funny enough, it was that project that I was working on when I was working with some storytellers, people who do this for a living, a copywriter, an executive creative director whose job is to tell stories. I learned, actually, in order to sell anything, you need to have a story. And that's true about you as well. And so I got my story in order and I got the job.
Anna, can I just butt in there, because it's a really interesting point. I've heard that point made about brands, and I remember a London Designers for Designers conference long time ago now, where that started to creep into the sort of DNA of the talks. But it's the first time I've really heard anybody say it about going for a job, or how we think about ourselves in trying to achieve a job, and how students should think about themselves. I'm guessing it could take it some time to work out what your story is and how to be authentic about it. But it's definitely a point that I'm going to take forward into, when we do portfolio crits, and I know Paolo works with the third years in terms of preparing them for industry, and I should think he'll probably be doing the same. It's very interesting. I've got a question here. Freya can probably ask that herself, but just before that point, I just wanted to say that's a very interesting way of looking at it. Thank you. Thank you. Freya, do you want to just raise that question?
Yeah. So I just asked, how did you get to the point where you felt confident in yourself and work? And I think I just like, did you surprise yourself and how far you've come?
So I think the confidence, funny enough, came from, well, first from recognition from my workplace. So I felt kind of recognized by the fact that I've been invited to work on projects and I've been given a lot of freedom and responsibility. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a boost and thinking, I'm getting somewhere, like people are trusting me to do the work. People are really giving me this responsibility. So you kind of start thinking, actually, maybe there is something to it. And then I think as well, when I say I went for a job at McCann, this wasn't the only interview I did, by the way. I did other interviews for other jobs as well. That might be a bit naughty to admit, but often at times I wasn't even really thinking that I'm going to take the job, even if they accept me. And it was because it was giving me the opportunity to practice my story and practice my pitch. And the more you do that and the more positive response you gain from it, the more confident you feel that what you're talking about has some meaning and some value. One thing as well that we always do, even now, is whenever we have to do a talk about anything at all, we run it through by our colleagues, and I have a kind of so I do most of the UI work, and I've got a UX designer who I work with, and we are like a little team, and I'll run stuff by her now just to get some points, just to get some validation from it, and also some feedback. And so people close to you can do that for you. Also, while you are at the college, if you're doing the course still, you can get your tutors to actually help you with this as well. That's what they are there for, to kind of help you. And the more you can, to kind of help you get to where you need to be, because the more you practice, it's practice and practice. It's just keeping at it. That's the thing about how you gain confidence. You just keep at it. You just keep doing the work. You just keep doing more and more and more work. And one day you find yourself in a position where you've been asked to do a brief, and you look at it and you kind of know what you need to do because you've practiced it and you've got it. So again, this is not something that Alex said this and he made a very good point. It's maybe easier for me to say now because I've had 10 years to do this, to practice, right?
Yeah, it is.
So it's easier for me to say it, but, which is why no one will be expecting you to have this perfect approach to begin with. No one is going to be expecting you to know all the things because you just simply can't. but you need to be aiming to that. That's kind of what I'm trying to say here, is that's not the only way to get the job. I got the job before I knew any of this stuff. I know this stuff now, but I didn't know that stuff when I was applying for the Hat Group and I got the job there. I didn't know any of these things. I didn't understand the power of storytelling, and I didn't know. But what I'm kind of trying to get at is that if you have this mindset already and you've got someone that says to you, you need to work on that story, just keep at it, little by little, keep adding to it, keep adding the little pieces, and they will make that story complete and to a point by where you will feel confident that that story can get you a job that you really, really want. I think I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that's the only way that I know how to answer it, really.
Thank you, Anna.
Cheers, Anna. Yeah.
Can I have a question as well, please? I would like to ask you if you ever experienced any difficulties because you are a woman in design world, or because of you are Polish, or do you think that it was your advantage, or how? I would like to ask you about your experiences because of that.
Okay, so when it comes to your first part of the question, and I think this is something that Alex kind of touched on when it came to your talks that you've been having this week, I think it's slowly changing. The amount of women in creative industry and this being seen as a man's job is kind of changing, but we still got some work cut out for us as women, unfortunately, in this industry, because it's very difficult to have a strong voice in a room full of men when you're a woman. So I think, but there is such a strong support now that exists for women in the industry. You can find female mentors. You can look at other ways in how to engage with kind of young female designers. There is events which are specifically run and aimed at women. I'm thinking about getting involved this year in the Women Who UX, Ladies Who UX events. There is quite a lot of support happening now, but I think my personal experience is that the most difficult thing sometimes is to get your voice heard. So I'm loud, and I don't apologize for it. I can be quite loud and opinionated, and I've always been this way anyway. Alex will tell you. But it's important to kind of just don't let that stop you, or don't let that fear of this being a room full of men and you have to say something. Just try and make your voice heard. When it comes to being foreign, I think the biggest difficulty is the language barrier. So you will be often asked to come up with copy or lines, and this can be, even though this is technically not a designer's job because there's copywriters for it, but in real world often there isn't a copywriter and you are asked to do it. And so there can be a difficulty there sometimes to come up with lines or language that is the right language for the project that you are working on. And again, my only personal experience from this and advice is just keep on reading in the language and reading other people's lines. And I spend a lot of time looking at other brands and what they're saying and how they're saying it, and just kind of learning from that. It's a way that you can kind of try and overcome that. But quite frankly, sometimes that will be a disadvantage. So you just need to ensure that you just work hard at the things that you are very, very good at, so it compensates for other areas where you might not be as good as someone else. I don't know if that answers the question.
Can I have one more question as well, please?
Yeah, of course.
I would like to find out more about your background, because on the beginning you said that you started designing something in Word, and I would like to ask you about your experience. Like, have you ever, I mean, do you paint or do you draw, or is it just only digital?
So I don't have any art background at all. Yeah, I started my story at 21 in this presentation today, but there was obviously a life before that. So I grew up in Poland, and I had a general education. I didn't have any art education or any art background. I went to university for 3 semesters to study social psychology, which is actually really useful in our job as well, but that's like probably a subject for another whole long talk. So no, I didn't have any art background. I didn't actually do anything artistic, or I mean, I have an eye for things, but I'm not like extremely artistic in any other way. Like, I don't paint or do sculptures or anything like that at all. I just, for whatever reason, liked the order of layouts, and that's how I started. You know, it brought me joy. I guess it runs in a family. My dad changed his career. My dad has a PhD in organic chemistry, and at some point he decided he didn't want to do organic chemistry anymore. And he started working at a print company, and then he was laying out books and doing covers for books for many, many years. He's retired now, but that's what he used to do. And so I think layouts just spoke to a natural kind of need in myself of order, and that's how I started with layouts, and then it kind of progressed from there. And I guess I'm back to layouts now, just digital instead of print, which is a funny way of looking at it, I guess. But you can be successful. What I'm trying to say, just to wrap it up, is like, you can be successful in digital design or any kind of design, even if you think you are not talented artistically, because a lot of the work that we do has to do with the way we think and understanding human behavior more than it has to do with how pretty something looks. If you think about Amazon, for example, right? Sorry, I know we're getting off topic here, but if you think about Amazon, right? How successful is Amazon when it comes to their user interface, and how successful they are with their application? It doesn't look like anything. Like, if you looked at Amazon, you'd be like, oh, that's not very nice design, but it works because they understand human psychology. So there are aspects of design by where you can really excel at, even if you are not very artistically inclined.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, you muted, Alex.
Again, sorry. I'm not sure whether people realize, but we have got your work from McCann here, haven't we?
We do, yeah. Sorry,
No.
Yeah, we
No,
got off rails a bit, didn't we?
It is. Yeah, no, it's just a really great ride, and I wasn't sure whether people were maybe wondering whether we were closing. We've got your McCann stuff, haven't we?
We do.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about McCann. If to those of you who don't know, McCann are an advertising agency, but they are an integrated agency, which means that we provide services to our clients on pretty much anything creative and design and technology you can think of. You know, from actual physical production and print all the way through TV, art direction, photography, digital design, AR experiences, SEO, everything and anything you can think of that a client today might need, we do. And then McCann Manchester itself, there's about 400 of us, slightly less, I think, but nearly 400 people in McCann Manchester itself. And we are a part of a UK McCann, who in turn is a part of a global McCann network, 190, I think, around the world of McCanns. And then McCann World Group is part of a bigger group called IPG, which in itself is just thousands of agencies around the world. And what's really great about working in a place like that is that you get exposure. You get to work with people around the network, around the globe. And actually, there was one thing that COVID situation, lockdown, and working remotely have done for us last year, was it brought us closer to our sister agencies around the world, and we collaborated on projects that probably maybe we wouldn't have collaborated on in the past, because in the past, distance was seen as a as a hurdle that was impossible to overcome, and suddenly we're all digital and we're all online and everything is possible. But it's great because it gives you such an opportunity for exposure and doing all these different things. And I thought I'd start with this quote. I cannot verify that it's definitely Kevin Hart, but I thought that was quite a nice graphic. I stole it from Wealthy Gorilla. A reputation as a hard worker is a good reputation to have. And this is something that I kind of really stand by. I work hard. There's no denying it. I do. I work hard, and I always had. Even before my design roles, I've always worked hard. And a place like McCann, it's important to really use the time you are given to work to really, really do the work and excel. Now, I know that there is this idea when you're a junior, even later, that you have to put 20-hour days, so you're never going to get anywhere. I don't believe that. I believe that we are, especially now, working towards a more balanced world where people's life and mental health is a lot more considered. And you can keep that work-life balance as well. But what I'm trying to say is when you've been given time to work, do your best, show up. And then when you show up and you do your best, get in people's faces all the time and be like, can I do this project with you? What have you got going on? What is happening here? What is happening there? Ask. No one in an agency of that size is going to be thinking, oh, maybe I will give this job to Anna, so she has got like some experience. No, they're gonna, whatever is there to do, they'll give it to you. But if you want to do more and you want to do better work and you want to progress and excel, you have to get that yourselves. But just to give you an idea of what you could be getting if you did that. So I basically been in McCann now for 2.5 years. And since then, I've done all these things. I'm not going to list them. You can read them if you want. But it's basically everything from digital strategy, working on digital advertising, doing even bread and butter design, you know, banners for Aldi. Aldi is one of our biggest clients. At Manchester, you know, and then UI design and UX design and doing all this stuff and AR and digital experiences and even to a point where I've started getting experience in workshop facilitation. And then I was running my own workshops, you know, with clients, with external organizations. And as recently last year, started doing some mentoring work, and I've been involved in pitch work and all kinds of things. So you have all these opportunities because of how huge the organization is. It can be a great thing, of course, if you go for it. It can be sometimes daunting as well because it's so huge and the expectations are very high. But it's a great experience nonetheless because it lets you dabble into all these different things, and you can kind of say, actually, I quite like strategy. Maybe that's something that I could be thinking of, you know, digital brand strategy, or I like UI work, you know, and it helps you focus a little bit more if you want to. Like I mentioned before, prefer a more generalist approach. And so I'd rather have a bit of knowledge about many different things than specialize in the one thing. But that's me, that's right for me. That doesn't necessarily mean it's right for you. So you need to decide that for yourself, like what's right for you. And I'm just going to show you some work that I did over this last 2.5 years, just for a variety of projects and to kind of show you what we've been up to. So this is a project we did last year, and this was my first full UX project when I kind of did all of the UX design on it all by myself, which was a bit scary because I've never done a UX project all by myself. And yet, you know, I just said yes. They were like, do you want to do it? And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. Like, fine, yeah, I'll just say yes, fine, I'll do it. And then I was like, and since then I've been asking, what else can I do? Where else can I get involved? What else can I do for UX? And they were like, oh, we've got this workshop happening, so get involved in that. Okay, fine. And I did facilitate some workshop with some very high-end executive clients, and just you just start gaining this experience. This was a project that I did the year before. It was about 8-9 months at the clients. It was an agile run project. So my first time working a real big agile project, developing an application for people to be able to access their pensions online with Royal London. This is some example of some digital work. It doesn't move, I do apologize, but this was like just basically digital banners advertising. Then this was a pitch work that I did. So we pitched to Legal & General, and Another thing that happened, we won the pitch, but we didn't get the work, which unfortunately can happen. And I did all this illustration and design based on their existing interface, but I was able to illustrate, and we did some animated SVGs for the pitch, and it was such a great experience to do this pitch for that company. I did some art direction too. So this is Aldi Christmas, I think maybe 2018, I think it was, some recipe shots. This was a shot that we did for a kind of step-by-step recipe, and then it became like a GIF as well and went on social. Do so much social work. I don't have a lot of very good examples, but for Aldi especially, there's so much social work for Facebook, for Instagram and DM and Pinterest and all kinds of things. We did a whole campaign for Kevin.
You mentioned Kevin.
Yeah, you gotta mention Kevin if you work on Aldi. Kevin is like the star of Christmas, to those of you who don't know. He's a little carrot character that they have. But he's basically like featured heavily in all our kind of Christmas stuff. So this is the kind of work that I was doing there. And I wanted to show you 3 more things, but they are actually videos. So I'm gonna try and make sure that runs. One was, let me see if I can get this to work. So this was a concept. It's called Gurgle because it was just based on an idea of a Google map, but it was talking about kind of the threat of rising seas and how the ice caps are melting, and I was asked to visualize an experience. This was just a concept that we did internally in an agency. So this is just a prototype that I created. So as you can see, it's a speculative work, but it's kind of rewarding to do this project as well, because you don't have a client that tells you what to do, and you kind of get to be your own boss on a project like this, which is really good. And just this was basically to help sell this concept on if we ever were to do something like this. It was just a very short demo of a prototype. And then we have another one, which is something that I did for a pitch with Qatar. So I was working on a pitch with another agency over in Midlands, and we were pitching to Qatar Airways. So again, this is just all prototyped I use XD in case anyone is interested in UI. I use XD for this kind of thing. So it's just a prototype of work that I did. Again, it was to kind of help sell the concept of how an experience like this could work if we were to build it for them. So we do quite a bit of that work, where it's just a speculative work, but it's quite rewarding because it's visually attractive often. It doesn't yet have the client input in it. It's just something that we want to do. So it can be quite a nice kind of rewarding work to do, and you get that opportunity when you work for a business of this size. And then the last thing I wanted to show you, but I hope you guys are going to be able to hear it as well. So we did a competition with Snapchat as a global agency. So everyone in McCann was, not everyone, but many people in McCann were involved in this. We were all pitching our own filter for Snapchat. They basically approached us for this competition. And so one of our clients is Rugby League World Cup, which is happening here in England this year, if anyone's interested. And we did like a filter, and while this wasn't like the best filter, it was just so fun to like do this project and work on the tool that I've never worked on before, which was the Snapchat Studio filter. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to hear.
I've just muted. Sorry. I'm just saying I've just made sure everybody's muted, so if somebody isn't on headphones, we shouldn't get any bleed. So it shouldn't work.
Okay, cool. It's just very short. It's just a demo of how the filter works. So it was basically a concept for a client, right? So again, this is the kind of thing that you might end up doing if you work for a company like McCann. Didn't want to do that. There we go. So I think, this is all the work that I have for you today, but I wanted to, before the questions, I just wanted to end on this one thing that I maybe made it a bit of a theme as we were going through it. you are going to be asked to do many things, and you're going to be asked to do them at the same time, and just say yes and figure it out later. Don't let your fear of the unknown, which I experience as well as imposter syndrome and all the other things you hear about. I got that too. But don't let that fear stop you, because when you say yes to things, that's when the beautiful things happen. That's when you grow and you learn and you get that experience and you move forward. And that's how you aim high. That's the whole point of this talk today, is by saying yes to things that scare you, it's where you excel. So that's that.
I know it's not etiquette, but like on these things, but I do want to just give you a little clap there.
Thank you so much.
It's just an extraordinary journey, you know, from somebody who says that they had no creative background per se, you know, like in the arts, as it were, to where you are now and what you're doing now, the breadth of work, you know, the different roles, the facets and aspects of, you know, what we've just seen is mind bending, you know, when you think that in 10 years all that can happen. It's absolutely incredible. And the work's just been wonderful, and it's fantastic to look at as well. I know, I mean, I've got at least 2 questions waiting in the wings here that I'm going to just give priority to, because they asked previously while we were talking. But if anybody has any questions, because we run over, but we don't care. But if you do have any questions, and you want to get a shout and raise anything with Anna, then just pop your name in the chat and I'll come to you. So Anna, thank you very much. I'm just going to go these questions, and then I'll close up. I think we have a question from Katie. Katie's in the 2nd year, and she observed your use of a lot of use of photography, which I did as well. Actually, it's one of my questions. But Katie, do you want to sort of unmute yourself and have a chat with Anna?
Yeah, can do. Hi, Anna. I really liked, just regarding the product photography you showed at the start, and the design sets you did. Would you say could you say you could do that for other things? So, for example, the modeling you shown, and other like sectors, for example, or like other things to like photograph, or what other projects to work on, etc.
So is you asking, is it like a transferable thing, or what exactly would you like to know? Is it I'm not sure I'm
so basically, could you just use it for like other things, so like design sets and stuff, or is it more to do with product photography, for example?
So in terms of the experience, are you asking about the experience of doing the photography? Right, okay, yeah. So
sorry.
No, it's fine. Sorry, that's probably me. I've been talking for a while. So so getting the experience of doing the photography is something that really helps you kind of hone on your visual skills, and but also it makes you think, because in most places you need to really be sure of what type of shots you want to get, how many. Doing a photography brief requires not just thinking about the aesthetics of it, but also the application of it. And so as I said, doing a photo shoot with human beings was very different than doing a photo shoot with products as well. And I think this is true about everything else in life. Working with inanimate things is a little bit easier than handling human beings, I think, in general in life. But it also is a great experience to try and get your hands on, which is why if you, for example, come to a place like McCann, you are offered a tour of a studio. So even if you don't work at a studio yourself, or you don't really do do photography that much. Like in my role right now, I don't really do photography that much, or I don't read art direct anymore. Someone else does that. But it's an experience that is really kind of good to have. And if you, whenever you have the opportunity to work with photography, I would really recommend it. Simply because as well, if you ever go into any other area, like say web design, having a website design with specific assets in mind already, knowing how things are going to work can really make a difference between a okay design and something really excellent. So I think there is big value in like focusing on or learning this skill of photography, or like how it's done, and understanding what's achievable as well. Because all of the stuff you guys have seen in there, this is all in camera stuff with minimal retouching. This is not CGI Compton stuff. This is basically, we've achieved this, use real photography. There is a skill to it and there's an art to it, which the photographers that I was lucky to work with have. You as a designer, you need to have the vision as well for it. I don't know if that answers your questions at all.
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
okay.
That's lovely. Thank you.
No worries.
I was just going to interject there after you'd finished that, Anna and Katie. Katie is a student who sort of appreciates the physicality of things a lot. And I think maybe, you know, I think she's sort of thinking about making stuff, photographing it, including in her work. And I know Freya as well has done some photo shoots for in the first term actually. And so I think maybe that question, you know, although you got it absolutely bang on, you know, it is about exploring the real world. I think the physicality of things and not being afraid to photograph creations and, you know, involve them in your work. I think the physicality, how to bring the real world in, which, you know, we can see you did, especially with that, you did that, there was that laser cutout and stuff, so.
But so I think this is a great kind of aspect of it as well, is that even though your role might be a digital designer, it's your output that is digital, but not your input. Your input into the work is not digital. It's often physical. We would sketch things on paper. We would figure out how things are going to work. Even now, even though I have wireframing software available and I can do boxes in software, I'll sit down and figure things out on paper. Like there is something that I believe in strongly, which is the fact that if you write something down or if you sketch it out, I have terrible drawing skills, by the way, never let it stop me. But basically having that allows me to focus a lot better than just sitting in front of my screen. And I know that this is what the guys at the course are telling you, because it is the truth. It's not about sitting in front of the computer looking at some work of other people on Dribble or Behance and then trying to implement it. It's about really sitting down and thinking about why you're doing something, what you're trying to achieve, and taking these aspects of it and applying it to your work. And absolutely, if you can, and you have physical work, you want to even, if you've done physical projects, art projects, you want to show in your portfolio, absolutely do that. Like take pictures of it. Even showing how you did a photo shoot of something has a big value for your portfolio as well. So there's many, many aspects of usefulness of that kind of work.
That's a great answer, Anna. Thank you. And I'm hoping that that went a bit further as well for you, Katie, in sort of the whole sort of remit of your initial question. Okay, great. I know Soraya's got a question.
Yes, please. Hi, Anna.
Hi.
I need to know that when you couldn't get a job, how did you find a brief to do for gaining experience or add in your portfolio?
So there are a couple of links that I could share with Alex later and he could distribute. There is actually websites that exist now where you get fake briefs. They are very professionally written briefs, but they are not real. And there is a variety of type of work. It can be anything from doing ads to doing like a daily UI challenge or taking on a project. Some of the simplest way of doing it for me was I took something that I didn't like and I changed it and made it better. So if there is a service or a website or a product that you use, but you don't like something about it, or it doesn't work the way you expect, or it doesn't do what you expect it to do, set yourself a task of making it better, but approach it like if it was a client's brief. So instead of just dabbling in, write a brief yourself. If you don't have a brief for it, write it yourself. If you were a client and you were trying to solve this particular problem, and when you work with something you are passionate about, that can really show as well in your work. So say you use Amazon as an example, and you think, I can do better than Amazon because I don't like their interface, which is valid as well, by the way. You can take that on as a brief and say, my brief is to redesign the product page for Amazon, and do that. Or if you were to, I don't know, use a different product and have a landing page for it, and it's not as nice as it could be. Or maybe your local plumber or your local hairdresser have got a website that you think could be improved. Take that on as a brief and work on that. It doesn't really matter what it is, as long as you are passionate about it and you approach it like a real project. So the same as you guys get a brief on from your course, approach it in exactly the same way. Write a brief and start following the brief. And then the more you do that, the more you learn the process of how to do a project, and you kind of work on this, your process. This, you will hear this sometimes, designers talking about what their process is like. You will kind of learn how to have a process, and what does that even mean.
Great, thank you.
No worries.
Thank you very much, Anna. I think, unless I've not scrolled down, I think that we've reached the end of the questions in the chat. Unless anybody else wants to pipe up, do so now, please. Okay, great. So I just wanted to bring the chat to a close then. Anna, thank you ever so much. You know, just in closing, I want to say that, you know, it's clear Anna doesn't roll out these talks for, she's not, you know, she doesn't have a 5-year talk and an 8-year talk and a, you know, we approached her, she said yes, and then since that point she's been trying to work out how to communicate everything that she thinks is valuable to you guys, and has probably, you know, woken up in the morning and thought, oh, there's that other thing, and that, you know, and it's taken time, and you know, this is, Anna's doing this out of the goodness of her heart, and has taken a schedule out of her own day to do this for us. You know, we're very, very grateful. Thank you ever so much, Anna. It's just been a fantastic close to our 3 talks. So I'm very, very grateful. I've just, something's popped in. Oh, that's a thanks, Anna, from Freya's. We're getting some thanks here. A few people popping that into the chat. So yeah, thank you ever so much. And oh, I've just closed my Chrome window. I didn't mean to do that. Dear me.
Well, I just want to say that I really appreciate all of you taking the time to come and listen to me talk about myself for an hour and a half. I'm sorry we've gone so over this time.
It's absolutely worthwhile, every minute.
But also I wanted to say, if you guys want to connect, Alex has my details. If you want to connect on LinkedIn, or if you want to connect on Instagram, Instagram is just pictures. If you want to see more about my professional work, you can do that on LinkedIn. Chat to me, email me, message me. I am always happy to kind of talk. If you've got any more questions or anything comes to mind, just give us a shout, and really keep at it, because it's worth it. You can have a really rewarding and successful career from this path you are on right now. And it's just really worth pursuing, because it can be tough, but it can be really rewarding at the same time.
Yeah, and you are the very proof of that. So thank you ever so much. Can you see my screen? I'm just checking. I did share it, but I don't know whether it's still sharing. Can you see my Chrome screen?
Not currently, no.
Okay, I'll just make sure that's up. If I use my desktop, that should do it. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So this is the last of our 3 talks and going out with a big bang there. We will be doing more talks and we will be reaching out to more alumni as well. I did a bit of a blanket email today. We will be getting ahead of this a bit more. We've had some alumni getting involved. Please come forward if you're interested in getting involved. All stories are valuable, and maybe you want to pair up. Alex Jackson had this idea the other day. Maybe people want to pair up, or do a little trio talk, or students want to pair up and do a talk. We've had students do that before. Freya actually, who was here, did a talk for us. So we want to do a lot with this, and it's going really well, and we are very grateful for all of the input that we're getting. And a final thanks to Anna there. We've got, when we have more events coming out, I'll let you know about it, and we will involve alumni as promised. We do have I believe the 2+2 event is taking place next month, Anna. I think that's right, isn't it? I don't know whether you know about that.
Yeah, it's starting again. I don't know how it's going to work this year. I mean, last year I wasn't involved in the event itself, just the afterwards, the actual workshop with the winning team. But we are usually a part of that at McCann, so I would imagine that we are going to be involved as well.
Well, I don't either know what the remit is, I must say. So Paolo tends to sort of take control of that. So please, guys, keep an eye open for that. Now you can see, one of the people that actually gets involved in the 2+2. I mean, there were 50 agencies there last year, if I remember correctly. So it's an absolute must. If you are interested in the course, if you are here investigating what we'll get up to, then graphics and advertising, mcr.co.uk. The links in the chat. We've also got quite a lot of, we've got a lot of work on the website, case studies, and if you check our Instagram and Twitter, there's more on there. Keep an eye on the events page, and we'll promote all of our talks on the Instagram page.